What's the most life-changing thing you found out too late? I was cleaning out my grandpa's garage after he passed when I found this old metal box behind some paint cans. Inside was a stack of letters tied with a rubber band and a black and white photo of a young man in an army uniform. I figured it was my grandpa when he was young, but when I flipped the photo over, it said Thomas 1952 in faded ink. That wasn't my grandpa's name. I asked my dad about it later that night, and he got this weird look on his face and said, "Where'd you find that?" real quiet. Then he told me to finish my dinner. The next morning, I went back to the garage and read one of the letters. It started with, "My dearest James." That was my grandpa's name. I shouldn't have kept reading, but I did. It was a love letter, talking about how they had to be careful, how they wished things were different. I read another letter, then another. They were all from Thomas to my grandpa, spanning over 10 years in the 50s and 60s. In one letter, Thomas wrote about having to pretend to date women to avoid suspicion. In another, he mentioned my grandma by name, saying he understood why my grandpa had to get married. I showed my dad the box that weekend. His hands were shaking when he took it. "Did Mom know?" I asked. He nodded slowly and said, "She knew before they got married. It was different back then. They had an understanding." My dad explained how my grandpa and Thomas were best friends in the army. Grandpa married my grandma because that's what everyone did, but he loved Thomas his whole life. They would meet up a few times a year, telling everyone they were going fishing. When Thomas died in 1975, my grandpa was devastated but couldn't show it. He couldn't even go to the funeral because Thomas's family didn't know about them. My dad was 15 then and remembered Grandpa locking himself in the garage for days. What hit me hardest was finding my grandpa's journal from after Thomas died. One entry just said, "I lived half a life for 50 years. No one will ever know what we lost." I asked my dad why Grandpa never told me. He said he wanted to. The summer before he died, he asked me if you were old enough to understand. I told him you were. He was waiting for the right moment, but that moment never came. Now when I look at my grandpa's photos, I see a different man. Not just my fishing buddy who taught me to change a tire, but someone who carried this secret his whole life. Someone who loved deeply but had to hide it. I wish I could tell him I found Thomas's letters. I wish I could tell him I understand, but I found out too late.